Hi, it's Stu, and I feel a little under the weather today, which for some reason I feel extra indignant if it's a beautiful day and I feel under the weather. And it is indeed a beautiful day, and I feel under the weather. And it's my day off. But I want to kind of flip that narrative and be like, at least I don't have to work, and at least it's beautiful outside, so I can go and sit in the sun and find some comfort there, while feeling a little under the weather. If I feel a little better, because sometimes allergies just kind of catch up to you through the night, and I sleep with my window cracked. So if I should happen to feel better, it is Independent Bookstore Day, and where I don't need, nor normally do I buy new books, very rarely from independent bookstores. And usually if they have them used, I'd go that way. But I'm saying all this to say, I do kind of want to participate in there's an event that I want to participate in if I feel better. It does go on past today, but today's kind of the kickoff. So if I can get to it and I feel better, that would be great. But I thought that it would be great for me to do the haul. And some of this is from friends at little free libraries, very few. Most were my sort of overindulgent haul from the Friends of the Library, which just had a lot of somewhat modern books. And since I'm only a thrifter, getting these sort of more contemporary books, it feels thrilling in a way that I overdid myself, perhaps. So let me just jump right in. I was just going to jump right in without even introducing the fact that I'm jumping right in. From a little free library, I found W.E.B. Du Bois' The Souls of Black Folk, and I have never read this, to my great shame, actually, because this I believe to be fundamental American literature, and or fundamental American reading, shall I say, and I found it very joyfully in a little free library, and am excited to read it. Also, I found in a little free library Caste, the Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. I know this is a super hyped book in the nonfiction world. I used to be primarily a nonfiction reader. If I can get myself to read one nonfiction a quarter, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. My nonfiction shelf sits stagnant, and I continue to say, should I even haul it, or should I just haul it all and just get it from the library when I'm in the mood? Finding this in a little free library with books to exchange, of course, sort of said, okay, maybe I should prioritize trying to read this. The way one can read nonfiction is different than fiction, and I have to remind myself too that you can read a little bit, you can jump. If one chapter or one section isn't really working, you can kind of jump around and still get the information that you need to get from the book. So I took it. It's so popular that it's one of those that I shouldn't maybe even shelf. I should keep in that pile like I do with my ARCs of like, read these soon or get rid of them so that others can enjoy them, because that stack is always sourced from little free libraries. And I don't want to be greedy or have something just sitting on, even though I traded for it. It's a fair trade. I don't want to have something sort of sitting on my shelf for a really long time. This was kind of an impulse pick from a little free library. It's The Girl That I Was by Geneva Rose. And it's one of those just really beautiful books, which, I fall into the ooh-ah as well. Nothing about this cover said I was the audience for this book. I think if you've been around me talking about books at all, you totally understand that I am not a romance galley, and really commercial books don't often work for me. I appreciate authors who can reach wide audiences and get them to do the act of reading. But it's not necessarily for me. But this one also has a lovely note inside that says, "Dear Reader," from the author. So I felt, again, like this came from a little free library. I shan't have it in my hands for a really long time if I'm not going to read it. But I felt compelled towards it, so it'll go in that stack of read, quickly within a few months or unhaul. And I look at that stack literally every time I go unhauling, just to keep myself attuned to what's there, and it'll go there. And maybe on a beautiful, bright, sunny day when I'm not feeling crappy and when I need something that is maybe a little bit more commercial, I think the themes of this book are going to be endearing to me, and yeah, and it could be a book that I just really need, even though it's not really necessarily for me. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna put it in that pile, and if it works, it works. And if I get to it, we'll say before the dawn of summer. Going on a trip right at the beginning of summer. So before that, if I get to it before that, great. If not, I'll unhaul it. I'll do a huge unhaul actually before my trip in summer. Let's talk about the damage that I did or the joy that I brought into my life, especially in the moment of hauling all of these books from the Friends of the Library. So Where the Dead Sit Talking by Brandon Hobson. What happened when I saw this book and when I was discussing with some other folks in the who we were like picking books together, and I often give a lot of recs at the Friends of the Library store. I've come to be that person that I've read so widely. I listen to book recs or read book reviews so much that people kind of like to ask me to recommend them books, which I love. It's such an amateur joy of mine. Anyway, this was a National Book Award finalist, which I tend to like the National Book Award as all of the awards selections best. It's blurbed by Min-Jing Lee, and where I haven't read Pachinko, I'm familiar with it. And then this was said Pacific Northwest Indigenous peoples or Native American peoples. So I went on to make sure I have feelings, I've expressed them before, about non-Native people writing Native stories in a way that they're like talking particularly through a Native lens when they're not. I think all authors should include characters or points of views that are unlike themselves and give it a try, but they should also keep themselves very much in check that that's what they're doing. So I think Geraldine Brooks, in my opinion, does a pretty good job of that. Brandon Hobson is an enrolled member, according to his bio, of the Cherokee tribe of Oklahoma. So, and this is by Soho, which I think normally is a crime. So there may be some crime fiction here. Where the Dead Sit Talking feels a bit crime fiction-y. The font in this book is just luscious. Like I could read it even in non-natural light. Thank you, publishers, for thinking about accessibility. I'm going to do a little side diatribe. I recently started a book, which was The Beast Sings Towards Beijing, and it was an ebook, and it said for accessibility, if your e-reader will let you, you can change the style of font, the size of font, the shape of the font, like so many things. And thank you for getting that. Like for such an avid reader, I feel so distressed when a font, besides I mean audio, then it forces me towards audio, when a font sort of just disenfranchises my ability to read even the physical book. So yes, first one from Friends of the Library. It was Shakespeare's birthday, so the Shakespeare books, which the seller at the Friends of the Library was trying hard to get rid of, were 50% off. She later said, I hope I didn't coerce you into buying. I said, no, you're a salesperson and you said 50% off. And as I've just read Hamnet, for the 52 book club, I'm supposed to read a nonfiction about the bio that I read. And the bio that I read, what I considered was Hamnet. So I'm supposed to read a nonfiction about Shakespeare. I'm just not getting to it. So we'll see before the end of the year. I thought, why not Hamlet? This particular edition has all kinds of notes in it, which I find super helpful. I did read Shakespeare in high school with a teacher that kind of helped me read through it. I just think Shakespeare is one of those things that's, best read with assistance. And And lo and behold, there's just a lot of assistance in this book. I'm, of course, very familiar with Hamlet. I think it could be fun. I think it could be fun, and I could find a buddy reader for this. So, going on classics. Also, I have another plan. I'm reading a book with a friend in Spanish, albeit a novella, for the 52 Book Club's prompt, which is read something in 800s, and 800s is foreign language, but so is Shakespeare. I'm talking about the Dewey Decimal. That's the prompt, and so is Shakespeare. So maybe either or. Okay. Speaking of classics, we have the Nobel Prize winner for literature, Mo Yan, who I don't know anything about. And this particular book, which was published, at least this edition, by the University of Oklahoma Press, and that is Sandalwood Death. This book doesn't exist digitally in this font. I might not be able to do. I took it anyway to see if I could give it a try. It's just, yeah. But what I was appreciative of is that there are several other Mo Yan books available in Libby from my library. Yes, I'm a member of a couple. So it could be, and I've done this for a couple of other authors before, that the book that sits on my shelf isn't the one that I read because I can't access it, but it tells me to read the author and see if I like the author and look at some of the other books, because it's normally my shelf that mostly mandates how I read. So I would say when it's Nobel Prize season and I pull a couple Nobel winners, even though I've already read several this year, like pull a couple that I'm not familiar with or that I'm looking forward to reading, I would pull this book. I would say I can't read it, but let me see what else my library has from this author. I'll read it, and then I'll unhaul this book to just kind of feel like at least I read the author. My system, okay. Oh, okay. A whole bunch of hardbacks. Old School Indian by Aaron John Curtis. Look at this cover. So gonna be a display book. I have some things I'm gonna pull around. Maybe I'm gonna talk about that a little. Probably interesting only to me, but definitely going on display. This book, okay, this author had a National Book Award nomination for his nonfiction, but this is a fiction. And yeah, Aaron John Curtis is an enrolled member of the Mohawks. We don't get enough Native American literature, period. But the East Coast of what is now the United States, tribal enrollments I get less from. So I am really excited. I'm excited. I'm assuming that then this is going to be taking place in an Eastern sort of orientation, but we shall see. For now, going as a display book, we'll see when I get to it. But I'm super excited. Okay, this one I almost didn't take, but then I was like, people were like, oh, it's such a great story. I read a little of it while sitting in the try it out chair at the Friends of the Library shop, and this is The Orchid Thief by Susan Orlean. Yeah, it could be Orlean, but many people were familiar with this book. I'd never heard of it before. It is from the 90s. I like to make sure that I'm reading 1998. Throughout the decades, we know that some contemporaries just don't pull the attitudes of folks have changed quite a bit, and maybe especially of folks who get into mainstream, like mainstream books. That's what I might say, and then I'll just leave it there. I actually, this font could work, but to get myself prompted to read it, maybe hybrid, I put this on hold. So it's on hold for a couple of weeks. It's a couple week hold off Libby. And so I plan to get to this sooner rather than later. It had a real spring feel for me. Blackwoods Blue Sky by Ewan Ivey. Super excited to find this because I read in winter The Snow Child. It was one of my sort of winter picks. And I had read some like fairy tale retellings around it that I didn't jive with, but I did jive with The Snow Child. So I liked Ewan Ivey's writing style. I liked the way that Alaska was used as the setting, which, yeah. This kind of gives me Goldilocks vibes. So maybe that's the sort of fairy tale that's being retold. I don't know. But I was excited to find it. Sort of feels like that's going towards winter again, which is okay. I have books now for years. Okay, Layla Motley's The Girls Who Grew Big. Super excited to find this. Jen Campbell, whose recommendations I always really appreciate. Don't always 100% agree, but it's never supposed to be like that. So when she says she really likes something and why she likes it, I listen. And it compels me. This book was on my radar before that, but just since recently, it didn't make the Women's Prize for Fiction or Carol Shields Prize, and I heard some people talking about how, sort of lamenting, thinking it should. I have been, when this book came into my presence, I knew I would haul it. I have Nightcrawling. I have a signed version of Nightcrawling that I actually want to read first. So I'm going to have this basically take its place on the shelf. So what I think I'm going to do is pull Nightcrawling and put it on my, like where I have a little shelf where I put the things that are on hold that are kind of queued up to read, and put it there, even though I'm hoping that I'll be able to read it we have sunshine now, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to read it mostly physically. And then this will take its place. For whatever reason, I want to get to the debut before the sophomore. Something could change my mind, but that's where I am with that. I unhauled all my Taylor Jenkins read that I had like 4 books that I unread, and I decided I wanted to make space on my shelves, and it was at the end of summer, maybe early fall, and I thought there are so many other people that just like are fan people of Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I should let them find those books in the little free libraries. I since at a pop-up book sale for 50 cents got Daisy Jones and the Six, and thought I would read it to put on our Friends of the Library have a display that's called The Book Was Better, and since Daisy Jones and the Six has an adaptation, I thought that I would read it. It's still sitting in the read for that. I kind of slowed down reading books for adaptations because the friend that I normally watch the adaptation with, I'm not going to see for a while, or wasn't going to see for a while, and then the Women's Prize for Fiction and International Booker hit, and I've been so absorbed in those books. A lot of backstory for saying that I hauled Atmosphere. I mean, somewhat shamelessly. So now I have 2 more TJR, even after I unhauled most. I know what to expect from this author, and I think at the right time and place, I will mostly enjoy this book. Not as much probably as the people who are her fans, but I felt confident. I paid, albeit not much, for this book. So I felt kind of excited that I will hopefully get to this book for summer reading and then put it out into a little free library, and someone will be really excited to find it. Which leaves me with, what am I going to do with Daisy Jones and the Six? Is it going to go on the, just read it or on haul pile? Maybe, because I feel like I've kind of backed off of the adaptation books, but we'll see. My second Jason Mott book that I'm hauling in a very short period of time, and I know I have to make space on the shelf where Jason Mott sits, and Jason Mott sits with Paul Beatty, Colson Whitehead, Percival Everett, as sort of like, and yeah, well, I'll just leave it there, which are like contemporary male identified Black authors, and so I have a book to remove that's not one of those authors, but who's sitting with them, a Jamaican, a contemporary that I have just pulled, and I don't know, but like within the next month plan to read. And People Like Us, which is Jason Mott's newest, is going on the shelf because A Hell of a Book I really want to read before this one. And I would like to get to A Hell of a Book maybe in summer reading. A lot of blue books, which has me thinking what I want to do in the front, where I have some just by color display, not a whole lot, but just some to make it pretty in my front room, on the other side of this corridor, which is my bookshelf. Okay, Wendy N. Wagner's Girl in the Creek. This I got with at the same time as another Friends of the Library patron who I see every week, who reads suspense, sort of horror stuff. She leans towards that more than lit fic or contemporary fic. There was a volunteer at the Friends of the Library who's read it, who said it wasn't amazing, but it was a good read, a quick read. It's Pacific Northwest. And so we both decided to give it a chance, and then like within the month come back and talk to each other about it if we got to it. And we both said it with like huge caveats of like, I don't know if that will actually happen, but if it does, I'll excitingly come back and say, I read it and here's what I thought, whoever gets to it first. Almost like a buddy read, a planned read. This would go on mystery thriller, and you know, if you've listened to any one of my videos, that my mystery thriller shelf is very small. It's just one of those small squares, which double booked, but double stacked. But I don't haul more than what's on there, so I have to read something off of it to make space, or I have to unhaul something without being read, because mystery thrillers are like, that's how I feel about them. So that's where I'm at with this. Since it's a planned read, it's probably gonna sit with a couple other books that I mentioned, like Night Crawling, it's probably gonna sit there like in the queued up to read shelf, and I need to think about that before I make more general reading plans or put it on an actual TBR within the next month. Okay, Intemperance by Sonora Jha. This book caught my attention when I was browsing at the book outlets. $5.99 sale, of which I ordered a couple of boxes now a few months back, or at least a month back. And it wasn't one that I picked, but when I saw it at the Friends of the Library, I said, okay, it had already caught my attention at once, so let's feel some joy of finding it again. Absolutely could read this as a physical book, which was exciting for me too, and not very large. So I sort of want to read this for whatever reason, even though it gets, like, because of the colors, maybe a bit winter, but I sort of want to read this in my trip to San Diego and then leave it in a little free library there. That's my tentative plans. English by Wang Gong, translated by Martin Murs and Jane Weijin Pan. I don't know, but I do know, I don't know if you see, there's like a paper folding, and then there's a little kid looking out from the side, and then there's these mountain views, and yeah, the cover made me do it. The pure friendship between a teenage boy and his English teacher is movingly beautiful. The deception of the intellectuals of that particular period cuts to the bone. I highly recommend it. That was the blurb. On the back by Mo Yan. Say less. I've done some English teaching in China. I think that there's going to be, I just see myself reading that in the summer too, if I'm being honest. And then finally, oh, look at this fantastic cover. You know, for this is the only Patricia Lockwood I've run into. I was really hoping for No One's Talking About This kind of to be my inaugural Patricia Lockwood read, but I have yet to run into that in my thrifting situation. And I know this last month I've read actually more digital that I don't have physical than, you know, sort of ever before. But generally it's my physical shelf that mandates what I read. And I try to at least spatially keep track in the books, even if I can't read them physically, and often do some kind of hybrid, like audio, digital, and physical, or physical and audio, or physical and digital. So I said all of that to say I could just go ahead and read No One Is Talking About This before I get to this one, but this is the one that I found. It's her most recent one, Will There Ever Be Another You? And I just love this cover. I love this cover so much. I pause because every time I haul the book now, because I have so many, I like to think about when would I get to reading this? The truth is, I now have hundreds of books and I won't get to reading them even in the next year. And I have to kind of make peace with that. And some of them I might not get to read. I might have to unhaul without reading or pass on to a friend and see if they like it. And if they do, pass it back. I have to start doing some of those things if I'm going to haul anymore at all. And I just kind of, like, this is the one where I just kind of want to read it, like, sooner rather than later. That's where I'm sitting with this book. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens if I go to Independent Bookstore Day, if I buy any books and what that looks like. If so, I will make a video. And I still do plan on making Women's Prize for Fiction video. Shortlist has already been announced, so I wasn't trying to get ahead of the shortlist or even the announcement, just reading the list. And I do want to share my thoughts on all the books. 3 are not available to me. I'm not going to be able to find them the way that I get books. But I'm down to like the last 2. After this week, it'll be 2 more books from that 16 book long list that are available to me that I haven't read. And I don't know if I'm waiting to read those to make my video or what's up, but I would like to make a Women's Prize for Fiction video. Might be my next one. The next one might be my review, my reading review. Who knows? But thanks for hanging with me for this rather long haul.